Hi, and thank you for tuning into Comfort Connections. I'm your host, Tiffany Robinson, and today I'll be discussing how to prepare healthy and nutritious meals for senior patients with Dr. Joan Salge Blake. Dr. Salge Blake is the nutrition professor at Boston University and host of Spot On, a nutrition and wellness podcast where she breaks down complicated health information into advice people can act on. Dr. Salge Blake's 40-plus years of experience as a nutritional expert and professor make her the perfect person to talk to about keeping our elderly patients healthy. Dr. Salge Blake, thank you so much for joining us here on Comfort Connections.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
Awesome. You have had such an impactful career. You've spent over 40 years as a nutritional expert.
Tiffany, I started when I was 10, okay? So let's, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. What made you want to focus your work on nutrition, particularly for helping people live healthier lives?
Tiffany, nutrition is a science, and because which is a beautiful thing because that means that research is continually coming out to update the latest science of how what you put into your body can heal your body and give it longevity. And the problem with science, Tiffany, I don't know if you ever read like the Journal of the American Medical Association, it's a snoozer. I mean, it's really bad. So, it's really boring the way they write. And I said, there's got to be a better way. So, my job was as a registered dietitian and nutrition professor to take the nutrition science and translate it into actionable, understandable terms where people could say, I could do that. I can make that change. And that's what I like to do and want to keep doing.
Absolutely. Why is it important to really focus on nutrition for specifically aging
Yes.
populations?
Yeah. Tiffany, Mother Nature is not nice. Okay. So as you age, your metabolism will start slowing down. Now, Mother Nature gives you wisdom. That's great. And I love that when I'm around younger people because I have an edge on them slightly. But your metabolism will slow down. So, what that means is the amount of calories that you needed when you were 30 and 40 are not going to be the same when you are 50, 60, and on. Your metabolism goes down, you need less calories. So, what that means is you have to make sure that every bite is really nutritionally rich because you still need all those nutrients. In fact, when you get older, you may actually need more of a certain nutrient like calcium, but you need less calories. So, we want to make sure that every bite counts.
Absolutely. Many home care clients need help with meal preparation. Many of our caregivers are going into the home on top of helping people with their daily activities of living. They're also doing meal prep. Let's get into some tips for caregivers. What should they know when preparing meals for older
Right.
adults?
Well, the first reason why people eat is for taste. And you just take that as a given. So it's really, really important that you say to the person, what do you like? What foods do you like? And then let's make some nutritional changes around those foods. And so that make sure what's on the plate is something that they're going to enjoy. And meatloaf, meatballs, casseroles, pasta dishes, whatever. But then let's make sure that every meal, and actually throughout the day, we have protein rich foods. Because that's something that's very, very important for older adults, actually for younger adults also. And making sure we have plenty of vegetables on our plate because we know that they are powerful, powerful foods. They provide a lot of all your vitamins and minerals, but most importantly, they have phytochemicals in them that can help fight inflammatory diseases, help with anti aging. So we really got to make sure that our vegetables are on the plate. And Tiffany, here's the sad news. We're supposed to be getting about at least 2.5 cups of vegetables a day, and most Americans are falling way short of that.
What is your advice? So we a lot of us are falling short of meeting how many vegetables we need a day. What are some ways that make it easy to put that into our everyday snacking and meals, especially making something easy for our caregivers to be able to provide to their clients?
Yes. Let me tell you a big secret out there, and then let me correct a big myth. Canned and frozen vegetables are as nutrient rich as fresh. In fact, sometimes, Tiffany, canned and frozen may be better than fresh. And I'll give you an example, Tiffany, and I know you've done this. You'll go and you'll buy broccoli at the supermarket, right? Beautiful, vibrant green broccoli. Ah, gorgeous, fresh. You go home and you open the refrigerator and you put it in the vegetable drawer of your refrigerator, which I call the produce graveyard. Okay, it goes in there and you never ever remember that it's in there. By the time you pull it out, it's now that vibrant green any longer. It's combat green. Okay, so now you say, oh my goodness, all those water soluble vitamins, they have been oxidated because of the air and they're not there as robustly. Now, let's go back to canned. Canned vegetables are canned a mile away from where are picked and harvested. Frozen are flash frozen equally close to where they are grown. So those nutrients are sealed in. In fact, the canned vegetables can stay on your shelf for 6 months and those water soluble vitamins will still be within the can. What I love about canned and frozen vegetables is that they're all cleaned, chopped, and ready to go. It's like having Rachel Ray in your cupboards. It's so you don't really have to do anything. And for caretakers that really have to do other things, activities of daily living, as you just mentioned, let's make it really easy in the kitchen for you to get a healthy meal on the table.
I think that's huge. A lot of us think that it has to be something that's fresh from the grocery store, and we can do this maybe even sometimes in a more affordable way by looking at freezer and canned options.
Oh my goodness, Tiffy, have you gone food shopping lately? Oh,
Exactly.
hello. Hello. I mean, eggs. When did eggs start costing like filet mignon? I mean, it's just out of control. So here I'm going to give you something else. Canned vegetables are 80% cheaper than fresh, and frozen are 50% cheaper than fresh. So right there, you have vegetables that the nutrition is in there, easy prep, easy on the wallet, and you can stock them. So in other words, none of this going to the grocery store every day to get vegetables. Buy fresh, use it up immediately, and then the rest of the week go to can or frozen as your backup to get them on your plate at all meals.
A lot of our clients, they don't necessarily have access to going to a market, the grocery store a couple times a week. So thinking about frozen and canned items is great. They may go to a grocery store and the items that they're purchasing that day may need to cover them for 2 weeks. So this is huge to consider that and to kind of maybe take away that myth that we all think fresh is the only thing that's going to give us nutrients.
Right, fresh is not always best. Remember that.
You mentioned something a few moments ago about protein.
Mhm.
So, for me, being in the home care world, we talk a lot about muscle mass and fall risk. And so, protein seems to go hand in hand with that. I know I've heard a statistic of we want to have 90 grams of protein per day. That can seem like a lot. That can seem like a big, mountain to climb each day. What are some tips that you have to help everyone, but also our aging population, our caregivers that are preparing these meals?
Absolutely. So what you want to have, minimum of 60 grams a day, and it can be up to 90. What you want to do is have the protein distributed throughout the day. And this is, Tiffany, where we get it wrong. A lot of us bank our protein intake for dinner. Like that's our big meal. Don't do that. Okay, put protein in throughout the day at breakfast, at lunch and dinner, and also at snacks. When you divide it out like that, the number is quite easy to obtain at each meal and snack. I'll give you an example. Milk, right? Milk is a great source of protein, low fat or skim milk. You can have that in breakfast, in your coffee. In fact, like a latte has almost two-thirds of a cup of milk in it. So make your morning coffee more milk than coffee, and even if it's decaf, to get some protein in on the get-go. You have things like beans, which are a great source of protein. Here you go, on the canned beans. And what you can do is drain them. And, Tiffany, a lot of people are worried about the sodium in the canned beans, but this is a trick. Okay, you can buy low sodium canned beans, but you know something? They're going to cost about 50% more than regular canned beans. Okay, and so let's not waste our money. You take those canned beans, dump them in a colander in your sink. You run them under tap water, and you run them under there and get them all washed up, and that can remove 40% of the added sodium that's in those beans. Okay, and that's huge because basically you're getting low sodium canned beans at the regular bean price. Again, they're all cooked, ready to go. You could add them to lunchtime soups or salads. Put them in beans with your rice or your pasta if you're having that at dinner time. Great sources to get the beans in there. Also, not only beans and protein, fiber, which is another problem we'll probably get into a little on this podcast. Um, Another great way we want to get more protein in that's affordable and good for you, let's look at fish. And people say, "Oh, no, I can't cook fish. I don't know how to cook fish. I don't want the whole kitchen smelling like fish. Please, no fish." Okay, so go to the canned food aisle. Here we go again. Canned salmon, canned tuna. Okay, great sources of omega-3 fatty acids, which you know is very heart healthy, wonderful polyunsaturated fat that we need more of in our diet. Again, most Americans are not getting the recommended minimum 2 servings of fish meals a week because they're like, I don't know how to cook it. I don't want it for dinner. Have it for lunch. Open up that canned salmon, the canned tuna, put it on the salad, put it on the sandwich, whatever you want. Leftovers, put it in rice if you have like leftover rice or pasta, and use that to get excellent source of protein, excellent source of those omega-3 fatty acids at a very affordable price.
That's great advice. I love to hear that. What are some other protein options that people can go to? I think we immediately always are thinking that protein is meat. And I know you've talked a little bit about beans and you've talked about milk. What are some other options that we can go to?
Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret, okay? We'll keep between us, you and I, and everybody that's listening. One of the best sources of protein is, you ready? Drum roll, cottage cheese.
Wow,
Now, let me tell you, yes, I see. I knew that was going to happen, Tiffany. You were going to have that reaction. So, cottage cheese, the reason why it's cottage cheese is excellent source of protein, unbelievably affordable. Everybody grew up on cottage cheese. My grandmother ate it, my mother ate it, I eat it. We all have cottage cheese. But in cottage cheese is this amino acid called leucine. And what this amino acid is very, very important in helping to synthesize the creation of muscle mass. It's almost like the secret weapon. It's also in soy. So edamame, you can get frozen edamame, again, ready to go. That's a great source of protein. You can add that to soups, salads, meals, whatever. Uh, Good source of leucine too. So cottage cheese. Now, what's beautiful about cottage cheese, it can be eaten at every meal. All
absolutely.
right? Yes, every meal, and it's a fabulous snack. So when we talk about getting this protein throughout the day and distributing it throughout the day, cottage cheese for 3 p.m. snack, a little pineapple, chop canned pineapples on top. Ah, you think
It's
you're in
perfect.
Hawaii. Yeah, really, it's really, really a refreshing snack way to get some great protein into your diet.
That's great. I know you also mentioned fiber. Can you give us some more tips on making sure that these older, clients, this older population is getting the fiber that they need?
We'll go back to beans. See, when I get beans, I get a lot of bang for my buck. I get protein, I get fiber, I get potassium. Potassium is a nutrient. It's called a fall short nutrient. What that means is that many Americans are falling short of it in their diet. So it is a wonderful, wonderful high fiber, high protein, high potassium type food. So I get three for the price of one. Whole grains. Let's go back to the morning. Okay, so we said that milk was a wonderful way to get protein in the diet. Okay, now what I love about that, I always judge a food by the company that they keep. And we have whole grain cereals in the morning for breakfast. And the company they keep is skim milk and fruit. Hello, fruit's going to give you the fiber, the skim milk is going to give you the protein. and it's gonna give you the potassium, and I'm sure we're gonna talk in a minute about calcium and vitamin D. So I've got a really nice breakfast in the morning that is unbelievably nutrient dense for not a lot of money. So whole grain cereals, whole grain breads, oats in the morning, if oatmeal, a great source, very affordable, good source of high fiber, and the fruits and vegetables. Having whole fruits and whole vegetables will be a fiber powerhouse.
That's great advice. Let's continue on. Let's talk about calcium and vitamin D.
Yes. Okay. We want to keep those bones strong. All right. So calcium is, you want to make sure that you're having enough calcium in your diet so that you are not withdrawing calcium from your bones. Think, Tiffany, of your bones like a big ATM machine. Okay. So when you have an ATM machine and all you're doing is withdrawing money, and not putting money into the bank, but just withdrawing it, we know you're going to have a problem. Okay? Because when it's only going one way, that bank account is going to go down. So when we get talk about calcium, it's your bones are like an ATM. Really want to leave all the calcium that you have already stored in the bones there. Keep them for reserve because that's going to keep your bones really strong. So the way to do that is you have to make sure that you're getting enough calcium in your diet to meet your needs, which go up as you get older, so you don't make these premature withdrawals from those bones. So we're talking about calcium-rich foods. Back to the milk. If you're not a milk drinker, what the best substitute for milk is soy milk. Why? Because soy milk has been fortified with calcium and vitamin D, just like cow's milk. So you're going to get that. Soy milk is also a very good source of protein. Cow's milk is a good source of protein. These almond milks, these oat milks, I don't even know how you milk an oat, but that's a whole nother episode, but, they're not gonna have as much protein, nor are they always fortified with calcium and vitamin D. So it's not always an even swap, but soy milk is. So if you don't have dairy milk, please go to soy milk to get all those benefits. So, another fabulous sauce. I'm a very efficient shopper. I grew up in New Jersey. I know how to shop. Canned tuna, canned salmon is a phenomenal source of calcium and vitamin D.
Really?
Yes. So when you get that salmon on the salad that's in the can that you didn't have to cook, you're not only getting protein, you're not only getting those omega 3s, you're going to get calcium and you're going to get vitamin D. And there are very few foods that really are robust sources of vitamin D other than these fatty fish and the milk or the fortified soy milk. So again, great ways to, double up that when you have that salmon, you're getting the protein, the calcium, the vitamin D, and fabulous flavor, and the omega 3s.
What are your thoughts about supplements? You've given so many great examples on how we may not need a supplement when we're kind of following these and you're getting so many benefits from just one item. But what about supplements? Does that have a place?
Yes, supplements are to supplement a healthy diet. So supplements on top of an unhealthy diet isn't going to do a lot for you. Okay, so food first, we have a healthy diet. But then depending upon your medical history, your personal history of your foods, your medicines that you're on. Okay, that's very important. You may need a supplement. What I would highly recommend is to make sure that we get this cleared by the healthcare provider because everybody's on different medications and there's certain interactions. So just don't go out and get all this and go and get cleared from somebody from a healthcare provider. And then yes, it may be like vitamin D would be something that may be in a supplement. You can make vitamin D from sunshine going out there, but a lot of people don't go outside. And then what do they tell you when you go outside? to put sunscreen on. Well, if you put sunscreen on, that's going to block your body's ability to make vitamin D. But we don't want skin cancer. So I got mixed messages going on there. So that's why, depending on the diet and the lifestyle, a vitamin and mineral supplement may be very much suitable for you. But let's get medical clearance on it.
Perfect. Now, let's talk about managing dietary restrictions. We get clients where there's a low sodium diet or there's a diabetic diet. What are some tips on helping caregivers meet those needs?
Okay. So people that have diabetes, this is another good secret that a lot of people don't know about. Many times, depending on your medical diagnosis, heart disease, hypertension, high blood pressure, you have to watch the sodium in your diet and maybe add more potassium-rich foods. People that are managing diabetes. So you're going to have certain diet protocols that you may want to have more of and then less of. Many insurance companies have the ability to pay a registered dietitian visit. Check with your insurance companies. Check with your medical care provider. You may be a copay away from having a visit with a registered dietitian, nutritionist who could say, okay, based on your medicine, based on your health history, let's do this. Let's have more of this in your diet and have less of that. We know that a diet, you can go to a diet and look at myplate.gov, and this is great for healthcare providers to get a visual of what a plate should look like. And that's going to be a quarter protein, a quarter grains, half of those grains, whole grains, and half of it basically produce with a lot of vegetables, and then a serving of dairy. And that's sort of what your plate should look like. When you go on there, put in My Plate for Older Adults, and you're gonna get some wonderful tips to help people who are caring for older adults what they should have in their diet. If you are a person with diabetes on insulin medication, you should be talking with a registered dietitian to make sure that your food intake matches your medication, especially if it's insulin. Because insulin it gets put in and it's going to lower your blood glucose levels like it should because maybe your not body's not able to make insulin as the way it did when you were younger. But you got to match that with correct food intake, and it's all about amount and timing. So I recommend that people, look to get that resource and see if it's available. To find a registered dietitian, nutritionist in your area, you can go to eatright.org. Eat right is one word, .org. And up in the corner, it says find an RDN. You can click on that drop down box, put it in your state, and then you can find a local RDN in your area and then reach out and figure out, is this covered by insurance? What's the story? Talk to your medical care provider again first so that that person is informed of what you're doing. So left hand is talking to the right hand. Um, and you can get that kind of support for as little as a copay away.
That is great advice. And I think something that people don't even realize may be available or covered for them. So that can be huge. Now, let's talk a little bit about weight. We may have a client who needs to lose weight. We may have a client that needs to gain weight. What does managing weight look like with older adults?
Right. So again, as I mentioned, that you need less calories, going on 50, 60, 70, than you did when you were 20, 30s. So if you need less calories to begin with, so there's a short window where cutting back on calories may be very challenging because you're not starting with a lot of calories to begin with. Some people just need maybe 1,800 calories a day. So there's not a lot of wiggle room to say, I'm going to cut back on what I'm going to an intake. Because if you cut back on what you eat in Tiffany, here we go. I have less chance to get nutrient rich foods in the diet. So it's like a double edged sword there. Exercise is a beauty, and movement is really good. Again, you want to be looking at the restrictions of that patient. And that's another thing where maybe consultation with a physical therapist to say, okay, based upon your abilities to do X, Y, and Z. This is what I would recommend for you for movement. It could be movement outside, it could movement in the house, it could be chair exercises, whatever, to get some physical activity. Weight gain is an issue too, and so again, having more nutritious meals and snacks throughout the day is gonna give more variety and circumstances where they can get some nutritious calories into their diet. So, maybe smaller frequent meals may be a bonus for people who are trying to gain weight.
That's a great idea to across the whole day, it doesn't feel like they're eating this very large meal that can feel very difficult. That's great advice. Let's talk a little bit about picky eaters. How do we work with picky eaters and trying to make sure they have the nutrition that they
Right.
need?
Okay, so again, and you should the caretaker should be saying, "What do you like to eat?" Because it's all about let's put some joy in every eating situation.
Exactly.
So what do you like to eat? And you know, uh, I don't like vegetables. Okay. That's good. Okay. So then maybe, well, do you like chocolate shakes? Oh, okay. I can do that. I can do chocolate shakes. Okay. So what you're gonna do is you're going to take, cocoa, and you're going to take milk and some yogurt and then blend in some vegetables that can be blended in like spinach. Or if they don't like fruit, let's go back to that frozen food aisle. Get berries. You take berries in a blender with some milk, yogurt, good source of calcium, protein, vitamin D. Okay, great, 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 great. Frozen berries, a little bit of cocoa. My goodness gracious, you are in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and as happy as a little clam. So we could get them in, through smoothies and blenders. We can get them in soups. There's something very comforting about soups. So, yes, so this is how I make homemade soup. This is my homemade soup recipe. I take 2 cans of my favorite vegetable soup. Okay? 2 cans of that. I go to the freezer, I open a big bag of frozen vegetables. I put the soup, the veggies, I open up 2 cans of beans, do that whole running water trick to get the sodium off. I put it in a pot, maybe get some canned, diced tomatoes in a pot, and I have got homemade soup. I have got homemade soup, and for nothing, easy, and it's a great way. They say they don't like vegetables, but they like soup. So you make this. What do you care if they chew it or slurp it? As long as they're getting it in, it's a phenomenal way to sneak in vegetables into their diet. Also, um, pasta dishes, casserole. Casseroles are something a lot of older adults grew up on. They do. Like a shepherd's pie. Oh, shepherd's pie. That reminds me of my grandmother. Remember shepherd's pie with the potatoes, mashed potatoes, and the green beans? Oh, and the corn. Okay, so what you do with that is layer more vegetables in that grandma's shepherd's pie. So they get, the mashed potatoes, but they get maybe canned corn, they get canned green beans, you can put, other tomatoes, I would can tomatoes in there, and then, the meat or whatever you wanna put on the ground turkey, ground beef, or whatever, so that you really fortify that casserole with a lot of nutrient-rich foods. Also, I'm big on cook once, eat 3 to 4 times. So I make like a casserole that can feed an army, and then what I'll do is divide it up into portions and put it in the freezer, so I'll have some during the week, put in the freezer, and then next week, I'm not making that, casserole over again. I'm pulling that baby out of the freezer and heating it up. And so again, also as a caretaker, I don't have to cook that week.
Absolutely.
So you can get many meals by cooking big and then dividing them up.
That's a great idea. We have clients where we may not go see them every single day, so they may need some grab and go options throughout the week. So, making a larger meal, making that pot of soup like you talked about, that sounds like it would just take a few minutes to toss together. And you have where they can grab a meal. It's nutritious, it's quick, it's
And
easy.
microwavable. so it's easy to reheat.
Absolutely.
So, really, having these backup foods available to them when they open that refrigerator, Tiffany, put what they wanna eat at eye level. The milk, the yogurts on the top, get those, that soup, make it available, any fresh fruit that you may have in there, apples or whatever, peaches, whatever, grapes are really wonderful. Make it eye accessible, the leftover meals that are covered, and then so they see that, reminded of it, and then open up that freezer and seal that back up. And what they can do is date the backup. So you say, "Okay, I put this in today, May 2nd," and so they rotate it and, first in, first out, that you put it in and then you take that out by your dating code so that you use up your inventory.
Great, great advice for us to follow. This has been such a great conversation with you. I think so many people could benefit from having, like you mentioned, a visit with a nutrition expert that can even customize to their taste, their conditions. I think this is really important. As we wrap up our conversation, can you remind us why good nutrition equals better quality of life for
Right.
seniors?
You need to feed and fuel your body with the nutrients it needs to function on, activities of daily living. You said that in the beginning. You need to keep those bones strong. So if for some reason you fall, we reduce the risk of a fracture. You need to keep those muscles fed. You need to keep those vitamins and minerals and antioxidants going in your body to fight inflammation. And, let's remember, uh, it's not nutrition unless you eat it. So make sure the food is tasty and a food that you enjoy so that you can deliciously feed your body.
That's awesome. Where can our listeners find more of your work and resources?
I have a podcast. It's called Spot On. Spot On is an exclamation point at it. And if you, it's on any major podcast platform, Spotify, Apple. And you can just search for it. It's a tomato with a headphone around the tomato, okay? So that's what it looks like. And basically, Tiffany, I started this podcast for the same reasons that bring me joy, and is to take my nutrition expertise and fit it into the lifestyles of those who hear about it, and to make nutrition delicious and easy to digest. That's my goal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Salge Blake. Your thoughts and knowledge have left us with some great insights on why healthy, nutritious meals
Thank
are so
you.
important. Thank you.